ora koutou, welcome to another episode of Inside Netball. We are here to debrief the recent Taini Jamison trophy and preview the upcoming Constellation Cup. I've got Anna Stanley, Dean Wilson with me here today. Let's get straight into it. A 1-goal loss, a 21-goal win and a 7-goal win. What did we make of the Taini Jamison trophy, Dean?
Oh, it was a roller coaster, right? Oh my goodness. I think the last pod, let's be honest, we were not predicting that we were going to lose
eating
Test
our humble pie.
Eating our humble pie, thanks for reminding us. But that makes sport great, doesn't it? That you throw a few upsets in there. And I think what I liked about, if we're looking at a positive, the fact that they had to back up in that second test, the Silver Ferns, all the pressure was on them. The pressure from the media, the pressure they would have been putting on themselves. So if we take anything out of the series, I took a lot of heart from the resilience they showed in that second test to bounce back when they were getting hammered.
Yeah, and for me it was the shift on attack in that second test than what we had seen in the first test and at the World Cup. They suddenly went back to playing a brand of attacking style that looked good. It was free-flowing. So for me, that was a key. Amelia Walmsley, she was a bit of a revelation, came out and backed up 2 really good performances. And, on her second test for the Ferns, she got MVP performance. So that was impressive. If we're looking at a pass rate for the Silver Ferns, still 5-6 for
out
them,
of 10.
Out of 10.
Okay.
I think they've still got a long way to go, but the good thing is Grace Wecke comes back for the Constellation Cup and she will add a huge amount.
It'll be interesting to see how much she gets to play though, right? Because I think they'll be very, very tentative about playing her. But as you said, we've now got Amelia Walmsley, and I reiterate what you said, Annie. I think it just shows that's the style that suits us currently. Yeah. Having that option to go long, look in, it keeps the defenders on the back. So, no, it was nice to see kind of that Silver Fern brand that they look most comfortable in.
Yeah, it's funny, we talk about the out of 10 mark. I was kind of thinking of 5 and then thought, no, well, the debut of Amelia Walmsley and how well she played bumped it up to a 5.5 for me. Dean, you thought that might have been a bit harsh?
Yeah, I was probably more around that 6 because of the resilience shown, because of the pressure they were under and they rebounded. Amelia, the other Amelia, honestly, all these Amelias. Amelia Ann, I thought, was very good. Yeah. She had a quiet World Cup, which she freely admits. She, I thought, from the captain, stood up and really performed. And I suppose that's where I go with the 6 as well, because with our defence as well, sometimes I thought we were really, really hot, but then we went really, really cold. I'm going more 6. What did you go?
And then you bring in 5.5. And then you bring in what would you give Knowles for her coaching performance out of 10? So that's an interesting debate.
Yeah, before you answer that question, I did manage to catch up with Dame Noeline immediately after that test on Saturday. Here are her thoughts on the Taini Jamison trophy. All right, Knowles, can you rate the series from 1 to 10?
God, that's a hard question. I'd say 6.5.
So not completely in the middle, but probably not as high as you would have liked?
Yeah, I would have liked a 7. I mean, it's not that far, is it? I think there's some pleasing aspects, but also still shows the gaps. But I think it shows also the shifts we're making, so that's really cool.
What are some of the particular things that you liked and disliked about the performances?
I like to leave the 7 out there. I really enjoyed that. I liked them, watching them work out there on the court, but finding a way, so to speak. I thought that attacking end did really well, and we're able to back up as well from the second test, which is really pleasing. I thought I liked Amelia in the back. I thought, she's a volume shooter, but she also showed a lot of maturity and toughness as well. I liked when we did turn over ball, but I feel that we're not getting enough ball in these moments when we're really good pressure on defence, contesting and all pressure, but there's big moments where they've just got big gaps. So once again, areas to work on.
Yeah, it felt like in defence in particular, it was either really hot or kind of cold. Is it just pressure? I mean, what else could you put it down to?
Yeah, it is pressure. I think it's also mentality as well, that competitive edge and our ruthlessness, and also probably a bit of skill sets. Sometimes we get really flat, or, our ability just to do the groundwork to push them high, push them wide, but get those feet moving. So the identifiable, but also once again, our ability to be able to put it onto court is something that works well and then it doesn't.
What does camp or the Silver Ferns setup look like between now and the Constellation Cup?
Yeah, so they go home for a couple of days. First day is a rest, and then they go back into the pool for recovery. Probably 3 trainings on the court or double trainings, which is either going to the gym and also on court with the skill sets. Recover, and then we're in on Saturday, and then we're in, so we've got 3 days, really 3 hard days, once again, of pulling what we did well out of here. How can we keep repeating that in areas of our game that we need to work on? So, and then the day before Test 1, we're off on the plane and we're hitting Melbourne, so really looking forward to it.
Yeah, Australia, they're going to be a bit of a step up. Are you nervous about that?
I'm not nervous, I love it. I love the opportunity it brings and for our players, because we haven't actually played Australia for a wee while apart from Constellation Cup. Missed them in both pinnacle events. And I think it's a great testing for our players, because not unless you play the world-class players, number one, then you only have a certain lid on you. So you either get exposed or you get the confidence that you know that you can match it. And I think that's what it's all about.
There's been lots of chat recently around potentially allowing some of our players to play in the SSN. Where do you kind of weigh in on that debate?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points I like to make. One, they haven't got any contracting, so I think we've got to be realistic about this. So our players have been contracted, and it gives them a surety that you can pay your bills, you can pay your mortgage, so those things make a difference. And the second thing is we have never closed off the door for anybody. People have always said, hey, I'm looking at possibly doing that. And my personal take is, yes, we've got a process that you have to go through, and I know why the board does what they do, because we want to develop and grow our own, and from sponsors, we just got to get real about that. But also, we've never closed the door, and if somebody feels that that's really what they will do, we will love them, and we will want them to come back if they go. So I think it's great for netball, and I think, if individuals get a contract there, as Sammy has recently, I think that's cool.
Do you personally think it could help particular players to head across there?
I think, when you're looking at the likes of a Laws and a Maria, those players, they were icons of our sport, and you get to a time where you just want something different. So for that particular reason, for those players, I understand that, and even Pole at the time. So they set the benchmark for us. Some of these players here are still new to the international scene. So to some degree, you've got to do the groundwork. You've got to earn your spot, in New Zealand in the Silver Ferns. And, you've got to make sure that you have the support in around them while they grow and develop. So when you're looking at the likes of those legends, they know what they need to do. So they don't need that same support.
Please don't roll your eyes at this question, but are you any closer to making a decision about your coaching future?
Well, it's pretty clear, I think, for me. So I'm contracted to the end of November at this stage, and we are talking what that looks like, not only for myself, but what's best for the team. I know what sort of came out of the review, so we're seeing, what that next step's going to be. To be honest, I'm really hard out focusing on this. Sometimes you do get a wee bit tired, and as players you get a bit fatigued. So I'm not using any extra energy to worry about anything in November. Put my energy where I need to be and get the wins, get better, show the shifts and do us proud.
Fair enough, Knowles. And just quickly, what would a win look like in your eyes for the Constellation Cup?
For us, which I'm trying to push with these players, our win starts on the training. That's massive for us. We don't quite have it sometimes, our consistency around that. And I'm an old school, so sometimes I may not align with the new generation coming through. But I'm pushing for those wins in training, that they can do it in the next couple of days when nobody sees them, that we can repeat and have that level of consistency in their own backyard. That's really important. A win for us going over to Australia will be massive for the Silver Fern brand, for ourselves, but also that confidence that each individual knows they can do it. That's the best of why you coach sometimes.
All the best, and thank you so much for your time, as always.
Thanks, mate.
So Dame Noeline Totoa gave them a 6.5 out of 10 for that series. One of the things that stood up to me is that she really enjoyed leaving her 7 out there for the last 2 tests. We saw the same starting 7. They stayed out there for 60 minutes. What did you guys make of that?
We both took a deep breath. Go in.
It was interesting because in Test 2, you know, she made no changes when they were up by 20, and you sort of think, oh, you know, when you're up by that much, maybe bring your bench on. And she didn't. And then Test 3 kept the 7 on for the whole game. And I thought in that Test 3, defensively, we were getting absolutely smoked by the English attack. I thought Karaka and Jury were very good in Test 2. Test 3, they were behind the 8 ball, slow, and that's where you needed to bring a Berger and a Watson on. I wonder has the review happened from World Cup? I wonder if the review has happened and something has come out of it that Knowles perhaps was making too many changes at the World Cup, and so she's taken that on board and perhaps gone, okay, for the Taini Jamison, I'm going to keep the 7 out there and let them work it through. Again, it's having that balance. I think I kind of get it when you're a coach and you want your 7 out on court to push through when things aren't going well. But when you've got a Berger and a Watson on the sideline, when defensively they were not performing, I would have made changes. So I think a little bit disappointing for me that she didn't make enough changes.
I can see why she kept those on attack, because they're young.
They were working well.
They were working well, they were getting experience, whereas the people you would have brought on, attacking-wise, have already had international experience. So hit Australia, it's not like they're like, I haven't been on the court. So I kind of get that, but I'm the same. Jane Watson, oh my gosh, she brings so much. Karen Berger, you know, 2 players. Again, I get it. They've had international experience. She knows what she's going to get from them. But you could say the same about Jury and Karaka, I suppose.
Absolutely. I think I questioned Knowles about it on the feed, and she said, I'm trying to find my spine. And so in her head is Jury and Karaka, her defensive spine now, which just seems crazy to me because I think Karen Berger, when she's on form, is the best goal defence in the world.
And also the style of play that the English were playing. They were mobile, they were fast. They're going to get that against the Aussies. Watson's quicker than Jury, without a doubt. Berger's probably quicker than Phoenix Karaka in a way, man on man. And so the style that the English were playing, I would have thought she would have tried to combat that with our Silver Fern defenders.
Because that's when you want to see the change, right? It might not be that someone's playing badly, it's just whoever they're up against, that other player suits playing against them better. And so I feel like we normally see that from Knowles and probably didn't see it this series.
She's trying to find the balance, right? Trying to figure out, almost overcompensating for all the changes. And if you're right, Annie, and the review did mention that, then she thought, hey, I'm just going to stick to it and see what happens. And she did mention that in our little interview there, that she enjoyed leaving a 7 out there. So it'll be interesting to see her approach for the Constellation Cup. We talk so much about the defenders, our defenders just now. I think that means we have to mention Sasha Glasgow, Barry Neal from England. They were incredible. This depth in English netball. I mean, we had no idea because we don't get to see their Super League over here. We don't get to watch it here in New Zealand. So I was really impressed with the likes of Barry Neal and Glasgow.
Well, you think of who they've got back home. You know, they've got Housby and Cardwell sitting back home watching, and then a lot of people were wanting Glasgow to be in the World Cup team in Cape Town. For me, Glasgow was impressive, but Barry Neal shot more attempts than Glasgow in that third test, so her volume as a goal attack was very good. But remember, they only took 3 shooters away to the World Cup, the English team, so there's a spot for one of those girls just to simply walk into. For me, it would be Glasgow, and then Neal would be coming in, nipping at the heels as well.
Oh, see, I like Neal. I love just her positional play. I don't know, does she remind me a little bit of a Sherelle McMahon or something? I don't know. She's just got great speed. I keep, seeing her drive that baseline. So I thought she was very good. But the other thing that came out of that series when you're talking about their depth and obviously their financial backing, the fact that they had, 5, 6, 7, however many weeks centralised, that in itself is kind of scary. Great for England, but that has just set them up so beautifully. There's, all the team that's feeding into their English side. Wow, that's awesome. So they've got something very, very right in their pathway, in their system currently in England.
But then you look at the World Cup, when the Australian team, who ended up winning the World Cup, they literally got together, 12 days before the World Cup, go over there and win it. So then you go, well, do you need that time 6, 7 weeks together beforehand?
For the B, should I say B team? I shouldn't say B team. For the up-and-coming English team, I think you do, because they haven't had the same amount of exposure. Yeah. But you're right. But again, I just think that shows the class at Aussie, right?
Oh, absolutely. And just to finish off with the Taini Jamison trophy, Knowles obviously spoke highly of Amelia. We've spoken of her too, Amelia Walmsley. What does this mean for Maya Wilson?
Yeah, well, it's difficult, isn't it? You put Grace Wecke in there and Amelia 2 goal shoots, I think there's no room for Maya Wilson unless she moves into that goal attack position, which I don't know. I think she's a better goal shoot. I think we will see Maya play in the Constellation Cup because it sounds like Grace is not ready to play until they hit New Zealand, those 2 tests. And I think she probably needs another opportunity, given it was just 30 minutes in that first test where she didn't have a good game. I think we'll get to see her. But moving forward, you've got 2, 6'3" goal shoots. There's just no room for her, unfortunately.
And, you know, at this time of the cycles, you know, we talk about the cycles because of Com Games, which we hope there is one, and World Cup, you know, it is those young ones that you want to build and prepare. But it is tough. I remember, you know, a few podcasts ago, we spoke to Knowles about that selection process. And sometimes it's not so much that someone's not good enough to be in the Silver Ferns, it's just the makeup at the time. And you've just got these 2 young goal shooters that are stepping up. So, you know, will that squeeze Maya out? I mean, it's tough. That's what's tough about sport. You take the highs and the lows.
It's the style that Maya plays as well, right? It just doesn't seem to really be clicking with our attackers and Amelia Rand. So I do feel for Maya, because when she burst onto the scene, it was like, yes, here's our next goal shoot. She's incredible. I know she wants to play more goal attack. We've seen that she can, you know, hit the yo-yo, she can get fit. And I know Taini Jamison coming in for the Stars wants to play a bit of goal shoot. That could be an exciting circle for the Stars, and it could work in her favour. But does that edge out Tiana Maturo? What did you make of her? Well, she only had that wee cameo in the first game, didn't she?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Wilson is that she just needs to learn to come to the ball. She's got into a bit of a habit of doing too many rolls and wanting that back space.
Basketballer in her, right? She loves that seal.
And she loves that, you know, that manning up. And it brings a little bit of physicality to the game, which she can get pulled for with those offensive contacts. So, and you saw it with Wormsley when she came on. It allowed the middies to hit the edge and actually just let that first phase go into the circle, because she was on the first. And with Wilson in there, she's never on first phase. It's always second or third, which means the middies have got to come off the circle edge, on again and wait for her, and that affects the rhythm on attack. So it's just a simple tweak for Wilson. Come forward.
Come forward.
It's not that hard.
Right, well, let's move on to the Constellation Cup. As Noel said in that interview, she actually didn't quite remember it correctly, but they haven't played them in a long time at either of the pinnacle events. I think she mentioned it was the Constellation Cup, but obviously they did play in the quad series earlier in the year. There was a 2-goal loss and a 6-goal loss in the final for the Ferns. It's a big step up, but she's excited about it.
And I remember that game because I was there in Cape Town when they lost by 6 to Australia, and I remember thinking, gosh, the Ferns could do well at the World Cup, because obviously Grace was playing in January, and I thought they played badly in that game against Australia, and they still got within 6, and that gave me great hope for the World Cup. And then we lost Grace Wecke. It's going to be tough for the Ferns without Grace. We saw how strong the Diamonds were at the World Cup. I think if they can stay within 10 without Grace, I think that would be a good sign.
So do we know? We don't know for sure what Grace's loading is, because she's heading over there. She's travelling with the team, so she could get out on court.
Well, they've named 14, right?
Yeah,
so they're going to name a 12. So I suppose once they have her in the system, you know, Shazzy will have her there, which is the physio, you know. So I think it will be a real, you know, call as they get close to the time, I imagine.
Yeah. Jo Weston wasn't at that quad series.
No.
Didn't play those last couple of games.
She's damaging.
She is damaging. She plays so well against our style of attack. How much of a step up is this going to be for the Silver Ferns?
Massive.
Massive? Yeah.
I think it's massive. And I think Aussie have just had a great break, right? They'll
be fresh.
They'll be fresh. They're riding high. They, you know, won the World Cup and won it easily in the end. So they're coming in fresh. Feeling confident, which is kind of scary, throwing a few new faces in there. And, you know, that was the thing I think that most impressed me about Australia. And again, it's showing their depth at that World Cup. And I'm anticipating they'll do it again now. They were winning that World Cup final with their 7, and then they could just make changes and they go up a whole nother gear. And I suppose that's the scary thing about Aussie. They can change their style, they can change the player makeup, and that's going to be the real challenge for the Silver Ferns. And that's when those changes from Knowles and Debs and whoever's in that management group are going to be key, because you're going to have to be able to react, particularly defensively, to who's playing attacking wise for Australia, because who would know? They've got massive depth.
They've got the depth. The big question mark for me will be around how Amelia Wormsley, if she gets on at goal shoot, copes with the like of a Bruce and, as you say, a Weston and a Clow, because They'll be backpacks. They are human backpacks. And one thing I did notice with Walmsley is that she does hit the deck a lot. You notice in games she doesn't have that core strength and that just basic strength. So that's an area of her game that I think she could actually get better. And she's going to learn very quickly up against the Diamonds defence.
Well, I mean, yeah, the English defensive circle weren't too different, really. Ardeo in particular played that really real man-on-man style. And I spoke to Amelia about it. She enjoyed the physicality and likes to step up to it. I guess if she's hitting the deck all the time and falls over a lot, it makes it look very obvious that it's a contact, whereas if you're strong and you hold it, you don't quite often get the calls. But Noel said, you know, a win in Australia would be the biggest one for them in terms of helping the Silver Ferns brand. I noticed she used that term, and the confidence of the team. Do you agree that that's going to be really important given the year that we've had?
I think just for their confidence, I think it's huge, because this is, obviously there's a Fast Five later in the year, but this is the last, am I right? This is our last hit out this year for the Silver Ferns. And, you know, they would have taken a hit themselves, because we all know how competitive they are. They want to win. It has been tough, you know, 5 losses in a row, and before that was a draw. Like, that doesn't happen very often. So, look, they will definitely, if they can come away with, are we only after one win? Like, that feels wrong. In Australia.
That's 50%. That's a 50%.
Okay, I feel better about that, because I'm like, are we only aiming for one win because I'd like to win it?
Yes,
but
yes, of course.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it also goes back to the argument, and I think Noel's mentioned it in her chat as well, about what we need to build great Silver Ferns, and as part of that, playing in the SNN, whatever this is, that one, the Aussie comp. And so you're having the international experience away from actually having to play a test match. So we heard Sammy Winters is going over. So those sorts of conversations, I think, are all up in the air at the moment because of some of the up and down results we've had this year.
I think the pressure's on Netball New Zealand. The pressure's on to finish well. The pressure's on Knowles. She's, you know, her coaching career's on the line. I was at the National Netball secondary schools yesterday at Trust Stadium watching, and I was just sitting down there with a few former Silver Ferns, and we're, you know, the Brains Trust trying to solve the problems of the netball world. And we're looking around wondering how many of these players will actually go on to be Silver Ferns. And the reality is there's not many of them actually go on. And then Te Tara Hakinen was sitting with us, and we're looking back at when we were World Youth Cup level, and we're talking about how many that play in the New Zealand under-21 team go on to be Silver Ferns. And T had worked out that the year that, were you in the 96 team with us?
Yes, yeah.
That
only one of us
team,
didn't make it, wasn't it?
That was the best. Most of us all went on to be Silver Ferns.
There's only one I can think of, Helena.
Yeah. In fact, in the 7 that played, a few of us were Silver Ferns at that time. And we were under 21. And you look now at the under 21 team that's just been picked. Amelia is the only Silver Fern. And it's just quite interesting looking at the generation, you know, back in our day, so many younger Ferns made it early. Now, not so much. And you go, why is that? Is it because this generation, they want instant success, and if they don't get it at netball, they go to other sports.
Well,
they go to rugby, they go to basketball. So this is the challenge now that netball has, that we lose players very quickly to other sports.
But also players are playing for longer now. There's been support around injuries and motherhood and whatnot, so that could also be a factor to it. But yeah, we are losing players to other sports. I just want to go back to the SSN chat, because that's why I brought up the Silver Ferns brand and what Noeline was talking about. I don't know, she said the door's never closed. You know, the process is in place. If people want to go, they can come and talk to us and we can figure it out. But she made the good point that they're still trying to protect the Silver Ferns brand. And, you know, we've got to think about sponsors and how it all works.
They can't go. If they all go, then we lose all our Silver Ferns in the
What
ANZ.
is the answer then?
Be innovative then. So don't have your competitions at the same time.
Exactly.
Have your competitions staggered so these girls can play in the different competitions. So, you know, do you pull the ANZ forward? Because then you could play in the ANZ and then go to the Suncorp or English or whatever. Is that the answer? I think that is the challenge for New Zealand, that wider netball community at the moment. We need to think outside the box.
We need to be smarter. We need change. You know, we've been resting on our laurels for far too long. We've just done the same thing. If you do the same thing, you get the same results. What's that saying? And it just feels like, even if we don't stagger it, then have a super club at the end of the ANZ where we get the top 2 teams in England Australia and New Zealand and they can play together. Because that's the other thing I thought, watching the Ferns' defence, they need to play more man-on-man at times. You know, they let the English attack just sort of go out of the circle and
reactive.
they had all the space and it's like, we need to actually change up our style at times and be able to, and we're not doing that either. And I feel like if we're playing against the Aussies a little bit more, then maybe that will come into our game.
And also, what is it that's going to attract and keep players playing netball as well? Because once upon a time, netball was almost the only choice if you wanted to be a professional women's athlete in New Zealand. There wasn't a lot of choice. There's more choice now. So what keeps them, what will make them choose netball? Is it the fan engagement because we've got massive crowds and people coming to? What is it? Because we're not realistically probably going to be able to compete money-wise to
or
some of those
depth-wise.
others. So again, thinking it's like there needs to be this massive strategic chat, and which I know New Zealand will be doing all of these things, but it seems like an opportunity to make a real change.
You wonder now they don't have reps until Auckland netball, New Zealand netball scrapped reps until as under 18s, and all the other sports
it changes every year.
All the other sports have, you can be identified and you have that success early on in other codes, and that's why I wonder if netballers don't get it, then they go, I'm going to go to basketball because I can make the Canterbury Auckland under 16 team, whereas netball, nothing's until
and I
under
can get
18.
a scholarship to America.
So there's lots of little things.
We're solving the world.
Really opened the door for a huge conversation here, and I wish we could get into it more, but we're going to have to save it for next time. We are going to do a Constellation Cup review show on Inside Netball, but that is all we have time for here today before it gets too heated. I wish we could continue, but we can't. You'll have to tune in next time. But for now, make sure you tune into the Constellation Cup. That's starting on the 12th of October. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Sky Sport.